Welcome to this rapid revision video looking at my predictions for the Edexcel paper 1. In this video we'll be looking at the topics medicine through time, crime and punishment through time, and the warfare through time topics. Unfortunately, I simply don't have the data and the knowledge to do the migration in Britain topic, which is the least popular after all. So if you are one of the pupils who does that, I'm really sorry, you're going to have to ask your teacher. Anyway, let's get into it. A reminder of what to expect. The Pearson Edexcel paper 1 will be in the morning on Wednesday the 15th of May 2024. It'll comprise section A on the historic environment and section B, which will be a thematic study, and you'll have 1 hour and 15 minutes to do it. Don't forget the sources booklet too, which will make it easier to access the sources while you answer the questions. And the 1 hour and 15 minutes is for both sections. The historic environment will include a question where you describe 2 features for 4 marks, and 2 questions for question 2. One will be an 8-mark source utility question, and another will be a shorter 4-mark source follow-up question. Section B on the thematic study will include a 4-mark comparison question, a 12-mark explanation question, and a 16-mark evaluation question where you'll answer how far you will agree. You also get 4 bonus marks for spelling, punctuation and grammar, and you'll have a choice of 2 different questions where you'll just answer the strongest one for you. Firstly, a word of caution. This is the first time I've done one of these predictions videos, and I actually do have some misgivings about doing it. However, it's been really highly demanded, and so I'm going to do my best for you. These predictions are more a demonstration of what topics have appeared only infrequently since 2018. Some of them, in fact, haven't actually appeared before. Exam boards often use the same topics repeatedly. This is partly because they want to keep you guessing, but also because certain topics really lend themselves to certain types of questions. The only way of really being sure is to know everything, and I'm sure that isn't what you want to be hearing. So don't just focus your revision on these predictions. Instead, if a prediction happens to be in an area you know that you are weak on, use that as a guide for your revision. Don't only revise those topics, use it as a guide. Anyway, that little disclaimer out of the way, we're going to kick off with medicine through time. Let's have a look at what appeared on last year's medicine through time paper 1 exam in 2023. In section A, there was a question on transport of the injured for 4 marks, and question 2A and B were on new techniques on the Western Front. Section B included a medieval versus modern prevention of illness comparison question for 4 marks, modern access to care, the NHS hospitals, etc. for 12 marks, and then there was a choice of 2 questions for questions 5 and 6. A variety of the appropriate content that would apply to these questions includes Renaissance topics like Vesalius, Harvey and Sydenham, the development of germ theory in the 19th century, Robert Koch, Jenner, Fleming, Florey and Chain and the development of penicillin, the NHS and other modern public health topics. That was worth 16 marks. I highlight here Sydenham. Sydenham seems to come up time and time again. He's appeared at least 3 times in the last few years, and there's no saying that he won't appear again. However, last year the question that included Sydenham did make an error about the date of observations medici. Come on Edexcel, you've got one job, put together an exam without any mistakes. Anyway, hopefully there won't be any errors with your exam this year, but it is worth bearing in mind that even the examiners sometimes make mistakes. If that happens, it shouldn't count against you. But I'm wondering if that means that Sydenham won't be included this year. Of course, the moment I say that, he'll end up on the exam, won't he? The following topics have all been repeatedly included in exams. Bear in mind that this exam was first sat in 2018. Most exams were cancelled in 2020, although they did have some catch-up ones in November of that year, and not everyone did all of the papers in 2021, so we've got reasonably limited numbers of papers that we can go on. Nevertheless, medieval doctors and hospitals appeared in 2018, 2019, 2020 and 2022, so that's quite a broad topic that comes up quite a lot. Thomas Sydenham, as I've mentioned before, came up in 2018, 2020 and last year. Industrial surgery, including anaesthetics and antiseptics, came up in 2018, 2020, 2021 and 2022. Modern causes of illness, for example DNA, came up in 2019, 2020 and 2022. Various other topics have come up at least twice, but these seem to be the ones that have been repeated most often. So that's having a look at what has been done so far, and these topics may be repeated. In terms of predictions though, let's consider the things that have not yet appeared very many times at all. Just a reminder to treat these predictions with a certain amount of caution. However, all of these topics are things that have not come up at all since 2018 in terms of being mentioned in their own specific discrete question. Absolutely many of these things, or probably all of these things, could have been written about in some of the exams, but they weren't listed within the questions, and so that's why I've chosen them. In section A, the medical staff on the Western Front, so that includes the Royal Army Medical Corps and its orderlies and doctors, the First Aid Nursing Yeomanry and other nursing services, etc., have never been mentioned in their own discrete question. Perhaps they will this year. Moving on to section B, barbers' surgeons have not been included as a discrete part of medieval surgery, or rather medieval physicians and other people who could care for you. Medieval public health has also not been mentioned before. This is quite a small part of the topic though, and is more related to the idea of cleanliness and preventative medicine in the medieval period, but still it's not been mentioned. The next one though is much more of a surprise. The Black Death. Such a massive part of the topic, such a famous event, yet it's never had its own question. One of the 16 mark answers from previous years did ask you to compare medieval medicine to Renaissance medicine and gave the Great Plague of 1665 as a stimulus point. Of course, this is 300 years after the Black Death. Candidates were expected to be able to compare the Black Death to the Great Plague of 1665, but it wasn't mentioned in its own question. Could that be about to change this year? Also, modern improvements in diagnosis, such as being able to predict people's illnesses based upon their genetic makeup and the use of x-rays, etc., have never appeared in the exam before. Another really surprising one is magic bullets. So those early medicines that are similar to antibiotics but not quite the same, things like Salvarsan 606 and Prondazil, have never come up in their own answer before. Penicillin has, on the other hand, so perhaps this year they're going to have a look at magic bullets instead. Again, it's not a guarantee at all that these things are all going to appear. I'm simply saying that they have never appeared before. Could that change? On the other hand, these predictions are all topics that have rarely appeared. So these are things that haven't appeared very many times, or perhaps haven't appeared for a very long time. Let's look at some examples. In section A, it's been a long time since we've had trench warfare or trench systems come up, and they last appeared in 2018. In section B, Galen and Hippocrates, despite being vital to many of the answers, have not appeared specifically since 2019. Medieval and Renaissance causes of illness, which is another really big area, hasn't actually appeared since 2018, although there would have been the opportunity to write about it. Renaissance hospitals, which are subtly distinct from medieval hospitals in their approach, last appeared in 2018, but it could be a very narrow area to look at. Modern healthy living, things like health campaigns, have not appeared since 2018 as well. And the last one is a little bit of a wild card. The lung cancer and smoking case study from the modern period last appeared in 2020. Okay, that's not the longest ago, but it has been in the news recently. The selection of topics for the exam shouldn't actually take that into account. However, examiners and the people who put together these exam papers are only human, and that's sometimes shown by the mistakes they've made in the past after all. So I wonder if this one here might appear because it will be in their minds and because it might be seen as quite a relevant topic, given that bans of smoking and trying to control people's smoking has been in the news fairly recently. It's just a wildcard idea. I've no idea if it will come true, but I like the idea. We'll see. Now I've prescribed my ideas for medicine, let's have a look at what the sentence is for crime and punishment. In last year's 2023 exam, it was structured like this. Section A had a 4-mark answer on the role of socialism in causing crime in Whitechapel. It also had a look at the role of poverty, workhouses, housing and the environment for the 8-mark and 4-mark source questions for the historic environment topic. In section B, the 4-mark comparison answer was comparing medieval and industrial, so 18th and 19th century, interpretations and definitions of crime and punishment. In question 4, they had a look at medieval deterrence and retribution, progressing on to Renaissance law enforcement and the role of watchman for 12 marks. Questions 5 and 6 included content on the following topic areas: medieval crimes, Saxon versus Norman laws, including the forest laws, Renaissance crimes, industrial policing, for example 19th century, and prison reform. And also there was specifically mentioned the case study of Robert Peel and the Metropolitan Police, and they would have been worth 16 marks. So they've come up very recently. Perhaps they're less likely to come up this year, but as I remind you, they could be trying to catch you out there, so do be careful. You'll still need to know about them. These topics are all repeated offenders for the Crime and Punishment exam. Medieval Crimes has appeared in 2018, 2022 and 2023. Medieval Community, for example, the using the hue and cry and constables to keep the peace, that's appeared in 2019, 2022 and 2023. Renaissance crimes, their definitions and their character, has appeared in 2018, 2019, 2021 and 2023. The industrial era crimes of smuggling, highway robbery, etc. have occurred in 2019, 2021 and 2022. Prison reform has appeared in 2018, 2022 and 2023. Young offenders, that's modern young offenders, has appeared in 2018, 2022 and 2023. Try not to take it personally that the examiners keep on including that one for you. And in terms of the Whitechapel study, unemployment and employment as trends that affect crime in Whitechapel have appeared in 2018 and 2019 and also 2022. With that out of the way then, please do bear in mind that these are very popular topics which appear a lot because they do go with a lot of questions. So what about the things that haven't been included? Might these be predictors for what is coming this year? With my usual word of caution, these are all things that have never appeared on the exam since 2018. In section A, the Peabody estate as a case study has never appeared, nor has policing and H division. National versus regional factors, which is a really wide area actually, including police records, public attitudes and government, for example the Home Secretary, that's not appeared in its own distinct and discrete question for section A either. What about section B? The gunpowder plot case study of 1605 has never appeared, and nor has Matthew Hopkins, the Witchfinder General, and the witch hunts of the 1640s. Modern community law enforcement, for example Neighbourhood Watch, hasn't appeared, and nor has modern prevention of crime. The Derek Bentley case and the abolition of the death penalty has also not yet appeared. Now remember, many of these things could have been mentioned in other exams, but they weren't specifically listed and mentioned within the exam questions themselves, so that's why I've highlighted them here. Could that be about to change? Whereas the previous topics would be on their first offence if they appeared this year, these would be repeat offenders, but they wouldn't have appeared in court for a good long while. The following have only rarely appeared. In section A, the role of discontent in people's lives in causing crime last appeared in 2019, and the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee also last appeared in that same exam. Could they be about to reappear now? In section B, industrial definitions of crime, so that's the 18th and 19th centuries, including the Tolpuddle martyrs, last appeared in 2019 as well. The case study on Pentonville Prison last appeared in 2018, so that's been away for a good long time now. The abolition of the death penalty last appeared in 2018. And the World Wars as a case study looking at the role of conscientious objectors and how they were treated last appeared in 2019. Could they be about to get a repeat now? Now it's time to battle our way through warfare. What appeared in last year's exam? Well, pupils had to fight their way through this. In section A, looking at London in the Second World War, they had to look at Anderson shelters and indeed other shelters too. Parts A and B of question 2 looked at Black Saturday. That's the September the 7th, 1940 bombing raid on London, which effectively started the Blitz. In section B, they had to look at the effects on civilians of both Renaissance and modern periods of warfare for 4 marks. The 12-mark explain question was all about medieval recruitment and types of soldier. And questions 5 and 6 drew upon a variety of knowledge. This included the Renaissance composition of armies and how they were built up, Renaissance technology, for example gunpowder, hopefully you can see how those two topics would be very closely related, and the Battle of Naseby, including the new model army, how it was trained and how it was revolutionary. It also included the opportunity to use knowledge about industrial new technologies, modern new technologies and modern recruitment techniques as well. They would have been worth 16 marks. These things all came up last year, but it doesn't mean that they couldn't repeat them again this year if they were feeling quite sneaky. What about those topics that report for duty time and time again? Medieval soldier types, for some reason especially mounted knights, have appeared a lot, 2018, 2019, 2022 and 2023. Medieval recruitment has appeared in 2018, 2021 and 2023. Renaissance armies and their composition has appeared in 2018, 2019 and 2023. And Renaissance Technologies and Changes has appeared really loads of times: 2018, 2019, 2021, 2022 and 2023. You know what, it's probably somewhere in 2020 as well. That's hardly surprising really, because the introduction of gunpowder at this time and in the late medieval period is a huge turning point in warfare, so that might be why it fits these questions well. Renaissance recruitment has also appeared a pretty respectable number of times: 2018, 2021 and 2022. The Battle of Naseby seems to be one of the most popular battles that's included: 2018, 2019, 2021 and 2022. Because of what it shows about training, it's one of the battles that is often really relevant to those sorts of questions. Industrial era armies have appeared in 2018, 2019, 2021. And industrial era technology and changes has appeared in 2018, 19, 2021, 2022 and 2023. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if it was also relevant in 2020 at some point. That's not all though. Modern technology and changes has also appeared repeatedly: 2018, 2021, 2022 and 2023. And modern effects of warfare on civilians has also appeared in 2018, 2019, 2022 and last year in 2023. For section A, everyday life in the Blitz, including lifestyle, work and leisure, has appeared 3 times: 2018, 2019 and 2022. So could it be that these topics are less likely this year because they've already been in many times before? But don't forget, that's not always the case. Sometimes there's a good reason why these things are included so many times. They often fit to a large variety of different questions, and they're often really important, so they lend themselves to a variety of questions as well. One year it might only be 4 marks attached to them, other years it might be 16. So what about this year's predictions? The following raw recruits have never appeared in battle before, so these topics haven't actually appeared in their own distinct and discrete question. They may have been relevant to answering other questions before, but they've not been named. So let's have a look at what they are. In the historic environment section, section A, the weapons of the Blitz, which includes bomb types, V1 flying bombs and V2 rockets, they've never appeared before. Also the role of incendiary bombs. The scale of attacks over time has not come up either. This might be because it's much more about contextualising the sources, I'm not sure. But for example, there's never been a question looking at the Blitz in 1940 as opposed to the baby Blitz later in the war, for example. As a case study, the Bethnal Green disaster of 1943 has never appeared, nor has the subject of why London was such a tempting target for German bombers been approached either. What about section B? Well, there's not as many here. The composition of medieval and feudal armies has not featured in its own question before, nor has recruitment in the industrial era. And perhaps surprisingly, the Battle of Waterloo has never had its own distinct and discrete mention in a question. Nor for that matter has the most recent battle, the invasion of Iraq in 2003. Could that be changing this year? These next topics have only rarely appeared, and it might have been several years since they last appeared. In section A, government and the royal family last appeared in 2019, morale last appeared in 2019, and protecting significant buildings, specifically the famous St Paul's photo, last appeared in 2021. However, that's only appeared once and it's quite a famous photograph, so maybe it'll come up again. In section B, medieval effects on civilians last appeared in 2019. Renaissance effects on civilians only appeared in 2023, so although that's only last year, it is quite a big topic and it's only appeared once. And the Battle of Balaclava last appeared in 2019, despite the importance of that battle. Similarly, looks at the Western Front and particularly the Battle of the Somme in 1916 last appeared in 2018, but it was only a 4-mark question on the use of tanks, so it was only very briefly mentioned and only kind of from the side. So could that be about to change this year? Again, these things might have a good reason for not being mentioned very often, or perhaps they're just waiting their turn. They could be worth a look. Before I sign off and say good luck then, remember, don't just focus your revision on the narrow areas that I've identified in this video. That really won't cut it. Instead, use this as a way of guiding yourself towards those areas where you are a little bit weak so that you've got time to put them right. And you have got time. One final bit of personal advice: once the exam is done, move on. Don't worry about it anymore. Move on to paper 2 revision, move on to paper 3 revision. I find that discussing it after the event is rarely helpful. You'll only hear something that you'll wish that you included, or maybe find out that you've made some sort of mistake, or just curse yourself that you didn't include something that you thought of later. Just get on with your life. And on that note, I'll say good luck. If this has been helpful and if the other videos have been helpful, the best way of thanking me is by sharing these videos, by liking the videos and helping feed that algorithm, and most of all by subscribing to the channel. You are so close now. I'm sure you've worked so hard, and it just remains for me to say the very best of luck.